Well, hello, everybody out there. A little more silent and somber of a beginning to Suddenly soundtracks than we normally have. We are normally graced with the illustrious vocal stylings of Chris Clark, and we're normally joined by Chris Clark as host of this show. But we're doing a little different of a show tonight. I am Maxwell Haddad. It is Wednesday, January 20th, 21. It is Inauguration Day. Joe Biden is now the President of the United States of America, and Kamala Harris is now the Vice President of the United States of America. And when we were talking with Chris, he said, I don't think I want to do Suddenly soundtracks on Inauguration Day just in case. And Tim and David and I were talking, and he said, in case what? Let's do it anyways, but let's use it as a moment to reflect. Look, I think all of us here are thrilled at the changing of the guard, so to speak.
Very much so.
After the last 4 years, it is a fresh start. I think at the same time, none of us are expecting or anticipating magic or miracles. What I said earlier that I think sums it up best is we're still going to have complaints and issues, but I take solace knowing that now there's someone in power who may just listen and operate with decency and empathy and tell us some semblance of the truth. I don't expect any politician to actually be transparent and truthful all the time. But there's still a lot of work to do. There are so many issues plaguing this country, not just in the immediate, like the pandemic relief, financial relief, et cetera, but also systemic racism, inequality for women in the workplace, LGBTQIA plus issues, immigration issues, climate issues, and on and on and on. And so we wanted to, whilst celebrating the inauguration and the new start, also find a platform to talk about those issues. And we could think of no better way than in some awesome protest songs. So you could call these protest songs. You could call these fuck the man songs. Bless you. Chris Clark called them the government totally sucks songs, whatever you want to call them. We're here to shed some light on some of our favorites. I'm joined by Tim Franco, who is sporting that punk rock mohawk, and the maestro himself, David B. How are you guys doing? What are your thoughts on protest songs, and why did you want to do the show tonight?
Well, I've always loved punk rock. I mean, music in general is always been used as a form of protest. You can go back, to the beginning of, music and it's always a form of expression. But I specifically had, from all my life, have felt a calling to the punk rock genre, and that just in itself is very rebellious, very anti-establishment, and I've particularly felt that over the last 4 years, and even more so over the last year. It's 4 years it was really heavy, and then the last year it really got heavy. It was oh god, I'm just feeling it pent up, and so this is a good way to share these little nuggets of protests that we all enjoy with the world.
Absolutely.
It's been cathartic.
Yeah, I mean, so listening to the playlist we put together the last few days has been cathartic, but also I don't think it's been any secret that Tim has this other playlist. I can't remember what it's called.
Vote Them All Out.
Yeah, Vote Them All Out. That over the last couple months has been great solace to me. And so certainly some of the songs have overlap on the two lists. What about you, David?
I've always been fascinated with music and how most of it has always been a reflection of the times and the culture and society in which it was created in. And I mean, for anyone who knows, I'm a jazz major. I got my master's degree in jazz, and a big portion of a lot of the jazz music, it's always been rebellious music. It was always considered quote unquote the devil's music, and because it was party music, but it wasn't. It was spiritual music. It was a lot of things, and a lot of American pop culture comes from blues and jazz and what have you. So I've always been fascinated with rock and roll, metal, blues, and stuff like that. And especially lately, especially these last 4 years, there's been a lot of music I've personally gravitated towards too a lot, which I try to make sure to really highlight in my playlist, which the internet now calls urban punk, quote unquote. And it's this mix of hardcore with punk rock with rap And I don't know, it's just something about the uniqueness of it all, and then it having a legitimate message behind it really spoke to me a lot. And I just like, yeah, I got my degree in jazz, man, but like when I was a kid, it was all about pop punk, and then I graduated to actual punk, and then I graduated to metal, and then from like metalcore, and then to death metal, and eventually I was like, okay, I need to like chill out. So of course I was like, urban punk, let's do this. So, but it's always
Yeah.
spoken to me too as like, I mean, as a minority in the United States, like I like a lot of the stories I would hear in the music like would resonate with me in a way where it's like I felt certain emotions, and I'm like, I don't know how to express this to the people around me, and the music somehow expressed it for me, so it made me feel, seen and not alone, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. I mean, um, a lot of this music as a Jew resonates in me. There's in like putting together this list, there are so many songs that specifically go against fascism or Nazis. And, all art at the end of the day is inherently political because it represents some viewpoint of the creator. And I think all of these songs we picked have a strong viewpoint that, can resonate widely, but also obviously resonate with us individually. And what I love, and we were talking about this a little bit before we went live, is how like if you take each separate playlist out, there's definitely themes in all of them. Like Tim, a spoiler alert, is very punk heavy. David's is mostly the postmodern punk or urban punk, whatever moniker they call it.
yeah.
Whereas mine is really eclectic. It goes from hip hop to punk to metal to even a little musical theater, sort of. Before we get in, I'm going to save all the plugs and what we have coming up for the end of the show, but I do want to shout out our patrons. We have incredible patrons. We have a Patreon. If you haven't already, check it out. See if there's a tier that's right for you. But we have to shout out our executive producers, Brandy Parker, Brandon Buckingham, and Ricardo Franco, and our producers, Anton Putra, Bador, Chris Pokernoy, Mike Kay, Jake Berlin, Kale, the youth critic, Molly Damon, Stephen White, Patricia Carrillo, and Tyler Birch. Thank you all so much for your continued support. We could not be here without you. So I am going to pull up the game board, which we have right here. And I'm actually going to flip David and Tim, so we go in order of the game board to make it easy. This is going to work just like any other Addict playlist. We'll go through starting with Tim, working up to me. We'll do it in chunks of 3, so 10 through 8, up leading up, and then that'll leave 1 left. So present your 3 choices. Tell us why you picked those songs, both musically and what it's talking about, why that particular protest song speaks to you. And then the person who didn't name the song, the other 2 of us will get a little chance to just talk about what we thought on the song, etc. So Tim, let's start us off. Let's get to protesting.
All right. So I'll go one at a time. So, I guess I'll do them all. So my first song at number 10 is "Simple Girl" by Bad Cop, Bad Cop, an all-girl punk band from Southern California. And then I have at number 9, I have Anti-Flag, $1 Trillion, from their album For Blood and Empire. And then I have Franco Un-American by NoFX from the War on Terrorism. Okay, so starting with Simple Girl. I think this song is like probably one of the least aggressive songs on my playlist in terms of like flat out, like you can flat out tell it's like a protest, anti kind of like we hate the government kind of song. This song to me, and the reason I put it on the list is because I just feel like it's a really good song, like just kind of highlighting women and power, being a powerful independent woman. And especially like the music video is really cool because it's just like home shot footage of like women and just in general age, all different kinds of age groups and lifestyles and different just everything, and they're all just singing along with the song, and it's just a really fun song and catchy. But I think it just speaks that they're not a simple girl. It's just very empowering, I feel like. And I'm not a woman, obviously, but I feel like it's important to have these types of songs, especially when we live in a world that is still driven by the patriarchy, which it's getting better, but it's not nearly as good as it should be, or as equal as it should be, for sure. So that's why I threw this on there, because I feel like this really highlights it. And a lot of their music kind of does as well. They have another song called Woman Archist, which is also really good. At $1 trillion, so this is going to be, spoiler alert, several Anti-Flag songs deep in my playlist. They just speak to me on a level specifically around, this type of topic. But $1 trillion is just a great song, kind of like, it's not super like rocky. It's kind of almost like it's like acoustic sounding, and it's just, very simple, but just calling out, what all you can do with $1 trillion besides, the use of the government seems to do with vast amounts of money, which goes towards, funding drugs, funding the military, funding war, funding violence, and how, that money could be better spent in other ways. But, here it is being used, to quote the song, to fuck the world, essentially. And then Franco and American. This song was written right after the first Bush election in 2003, and it's just kind of a very targeted song specifically to like the politics of that time, but calling out, all the different things that were going on, environmentalism. They reference, not by name, but Tom's shoes, and the fact of these giant corporations, like Nike and stuff like that. And the singer says that they wear uncomfortable shoes because of globalization. I just think it's a really fun anthem around the politics of that time, and I really love like the weird like keyboard that they have in this song, which is interesting for like a NoFX song. So those are my first three to get us started there.
What are your thoughts on these songs, David?
I mean, classic rock, punk rock songs. I particularly liked "Simple Girl." I always love when you can see like female singers in any rock genre and like crush at it. Like I don't know if this is relevant or not, but like my main thing right now has been like finding all girl metal bands. You know what I mean? So like I've been doing a deep dive right now on like I can only find them in Japan. So like Bandmade and like a Baby Metal, and just seeing how good they are. They're just shred. They're just great musicians. So like I always love seeing representation of that. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of like themes in your songs too that I'm pretty sure are going to be in all of our playlists. But I can tell like there's like one song in particular that's like very much the same theme of like $1 trillion in my playlist. So they were fun, man. Like walking around, like I do a lot of walks around my neighborhood, so I would listen to our playlist and stuff, and I would just be like, yeah, it's just it's weird to say because the message is heavy, but it's like punk is very fun.
Right.
It has an essence of fun to it, despite
and these
being,
three songs specifically kind of like highlight that whole like kind of like lighthearted funness of
exactly. So it was just like, it's like sometimes you listen to it, like I'm listening to it right now too. I just be like skipping down the street, like, oh yeah, cops are terrible, yeah. So man,
yeah. I think the interesting thing about like 90% of these 30 songs we're presenting is when you really listen to the lyrics, they're like incisive, powerful lyrics. But if you're sort of just listening to the song, they're like fun songs that make you want to like dance and rage.
Yeah.
And I think that's a testament to a lot of this protest music that we picked. I liked all three of these songs a lot. Look, so I'm familiar with your taste, Tim, and I've also listened to the Vote Them Out playlist. So I purposefully stayed away from Anti-Flag because I, spoiler alert, correctly assumed that you would have them covered. I also love NoFX. I've always been a fan of Franco and American. This was a song I listened to a lot in the Bush era, alongside some other stuff that I'm sure is going to get mentioned. So they're both great songs. I was not familiar at all with Bad Cop, Bad Cop. And I have to say, I have sort of fallen in love with them. After listening to this, I went and explored some of their other music. They're super rad. And I agree with what David was saying. Like, any way to get more women in rock is awesome. That's partly why I'm a huge fan of Paramore. And I'm really going to keep exploring this band. This song was so fun, but also I really love the lyrics. And like, of all of the music on the playlist that I hadn't heard before, this is one of my absolute favorites.
Nice. Appreciate that.
All right, David, what are your first three you got?
All right. I think the first one I got here is Kick the Chair by Megadeth. And then I have BYOB by System of a Down. And then I have this one by what I would say is a relatively unknown band called American Lives by The Armed. Uh, I can vividly remember the first time being aware of political songs was my time in high school. And I remember this was like when I was really getting into heavy metal for the first time. This was like one of the first songs that I listened to where I was like paying attention to the lyrics. Like up until that point, I just wanted to learn how to shred. So it was like, that sounds shreddy. I'm gonna learn that. That sounds cool. I'm gonna learn that. And eventually, I was like, what are these songs saying? Like, what am I injecting into my ears, or what am I supporting by listening or buying the product? If that makes sense. So this is I'm pretty sure this is off the album "The System Has Failed." Um, and essentially, like, out of all the Megadeth songs, you can argue it's probably not the best Megadeth song. It's not the shreddiest. But I've been listening to this podcast lately called The Chicano Squad by Vox Media. And for those of you who don't know, it's about the Houston police department in the 1970s in Houston, and how like Latino, specifically Chicano people, Mexican American people, were heavily discriminated against by the police department. And it's about how the police department actually killed a Vietnam veteran, and like no one got prosecuted. Like everyone walked away scot free, even though there was clear evidence that the cops murdered someone in their custody.
Oh, yeah.
And for some reason, this song resonated with me a lot this week, which is "Kick the Chair," which is essentially is about, you know, I mean, the lyrics, if you read the lyrics, right? Justice just means nothing today. The courts are for sale. Pick a Kai from the menu, pick a sentence and defend you, and pay up the down payment called bail. And I was like, that's what's happening, man. Like, this is like, and it sucks. It still kind of happens today too. We see it all the time with like how many Black American lives are taken from us, and how like a lot of those cops don't have any repercussions. None of them really have any. It's like a slap on the wrist and be like, oh, don't do it again, and then they walk away. You know what I mean? So the song really resonated with me in that sense today. And then also too, I felt like obligation. It's like I got to put a Megadeth song in there, right? Like it's a more political heavy metal band than Megadeth. And then I was like, System of a Down. So that's why that was my number 9. And BYOB, right? Bring your own bombs. I mean, if you grew up when at the heyday of System of a Down, you know what this song's about. You know, the lyrics, again, I just love reading lyrics and stuff like that. Like, why do they always send the poor? And it's just like, it's a song about like people profiteering off war and like making money off of war and war torn lands, like destroying a place and then rebuilding it out of their own, and getting change in their pockets just the same. And how young American lives are like killed and stuff like that for the profiteering of other people. And it's so fucked up thinking about how this song came out like what, over a decade ago, and it's still relevant today in a lot of ways. And also it's just like, for anyone who knows System of a Down, they've always been a huge I think all the men are Armenian. Someone correct me if I'm, but I'm pretty sure all of them are Armenian, so they've always been a heavily political band trying to bring a spotlight to real serious issues. So I've always appreciated them and like the message they have, and then they're technically very proficient band as well. So of course, a young, angry, angsty boy like me hears that song and I go, "Fuck yeah, dude!" So, the next song I have called "American Lives" by The Armed, and again, this isn't even really my favorite song by them, but I feel like it's the song that's most relevant to what we're trying to go through. The Armed is like this very niche, and I'm sure you guys heard it in what the fuck is David making me listen to? It's just very raw, angry, almost inaudible music. It's just a wall of sound, right? But it very clearly depicts like what I sometimes feel when I log on Twitter or when I'm just watching the news. It's just this white noise of like constant threat. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, and like this song to me just perfectly represents that. And then you add on the lyrics, which I know are like, even I had a hard time being like, what is he saying? But it's basically a song about kind of like standing up for yourself and not letting the government kind of like tell you what's right, what's wrong, not to If I just read some of the lyrics, so like, from ranks around the nation, brothers and sisters, stand your ground. I am the call to action. You are the urgent response. Just take what they hold precious, all that they wear as a crown. Tie up their truth like a noose and let them all hang down. Take arms. And like it was either between this song and there's another song called Headlines by Guerrilla Warfare, which I felt had the same familiar theme of like how like there's always this notion of like opinions that are presented as facts and everyone has quote unquote different evidence and stuff like that, when we should all just find a common place of like what's right and what's right and what's wrong and what's wrong, and how the government is constantly trying to like essentially put us all together, black versus white, brown versus everybody else, what have you. So, and it's just an angry song, dude. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure, I forgot who said it, but yeah, my playlist is like the noise is angry. That's if you were to describe like what's the emotion in David's playlist, where it's like Franco's kind of like f- like it's like punk rock, it's a little angsty but it's a little fun. And Maxwell's, I would personally, it's like it's whimsical, it's like very like all over the place. Dave, you just say David's just angry. So I don't know, man. It just felt right putting it in there. So
Yeah. What do you think of these, Tim?
Yeah, I feel like Megadeth has to be there. I've heard this song, but I'm not as familiar with the song. But I really enjoyed it, and I definitely think like David's like explanation of it in terms of like it's just kind of like the aggressive, racist street justice that you see going on. That's been going on, but especially prominent in the last 5 to 10 years. But I think that song is really speaks to that, even though it came out, decades ago. System of a Down, they're one of there's many System of a Down songs on my bigger playlist. So I am a big fan of System of a Down. I've loved them since I really fell in love with them with Toxicity, which I think a lot of people did, because that's kind of like when that was their first big commercial success, that album. But then I went back and explored, their earlier. I think they did like 2 albums before that. But I mean, this song is incredible. The musicianship in it is great. Darren's like one of my favorite guitarists of all time. Serge is one of my favorite vocalists of all time. I even like his like solo stuff. And then he even did a song with Tech Nine that's really good that I like, called Straight Out the Gate. But yeah, I mean, the message in this song, I mean, they're very anti-war, they're very anti, violence and the kind of like what you reap if you like go that way. Because as you said, they're all, I think Shavo is the only one that was from Armenia, but they're all Armenian in terms of background. So I mean, they know what violence can bring in their history because of like that culture has seen genocide, and they know what happens if a powerful like fascist order were to take over, and what that brings essentially. So they're kind of like it's like a warning essentially what can happen, which a lot of this music is in general, obviously. American Lives, this band I had never heard of, and I actually had to look them up because I was interested in like more about them. And so like they're like, from what I was reading too, like they're kind of like, they listed them as like an anonymous band, so like they don't so they're not like really like public about who's in the band or like who's which I thought was really cool. That's like very like hardcore punk.
I forgot to mention that it's an ever evolving door of members, so it's never like the same personnel on each album. The band itself is a collective experiment, and whoever has an idea or whoever has something to say, like the latest album, if you guys want to go listen to it, it has a female vocalist.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
And but from the beginning, it's always been like predominantly like a male vocalist if you listen to it, but again, it's that revolving door of like, you got something to say or something, or you got an idea, the band is there. It's a very odd but very like, again, DIY punk rock kind of like the band isn't the 4 members, the band is like this community, which I really like the idea behind it too. So
yeah, and they reminded me a lot of like that, like you said, I think that early like late 70s, early 80s, super grungy, like you're seeing them in like a really dirty, dank like club in like San Francisco somewhere, or London, and they don't sound good live at all, but it's amazing and it's just an experience and you have to be there to experience it. And the lyrics aren't like super complex, but they're very poignant in what they're saying. And I encourage, like, a lot of people who aren't like used to this music may not understand, be able to catch the lyrics. So I encourage you to listen to it multiple times and even look up the lyrics so you can like understand, see what they're actually saying. And with a lot of like music, we'll see later in the playlist, I think too, sometimes you have to look things up and like, learn about the song to find out a little bit more about what is being said. So, but yeah, I appreciate and like all of these selections very much.
I just want the audience to know, for System of a Down was for sure going to be on my list. There was like 3 songs I wanted to put on there. Another one was obviously Hypnotize, which if you guys know that song, you know like why I would want to put it on this list. But I wanted my playlist to be angry as fuck. So I was like, BYOB's angrier. So it was either that or Cigarro, which I think is a song just about politicians like literally jerking themselves off in front of each other. If you ever heard that song, you know that's what that song's about.
Yeah. Yeah, so I love Megadeth. I'm not going to spoil that I have a Megadeth song on my list, but I have a Megadeth song on my list. I like metal. I particularly love like mid to late 80s, early 90s metal, and I really attribute my love for that to my brother. One of the few decent things he instilled in me, because we disagree on pretty much everything else. But I'll never forget the first time like he played Metallica for me, and it blew my mind. And then Megadeth, and on, explored all this stuff. So, yeah, it's a great song. And you keep talking about anger, and certainly that's a prevailing theme in most of your choices, and I don't blame you at all. Look, System of a Down, I'm a huge fan, especially in mid to late high school and college. I loved them. I still listen to them, but freshman year of college, my dad bought me an electric guitar, and like the first stuff I learned how to play was like Hypnotize. And a bunch of other System of a Down stuff. So this song is great. I would say they're one of the great political bands of recent memory. Like even today, Serge was in the news because of some of the stuff he was saying about that bozo who just left. Hey, Patty. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so this is an awesome choice. And I had never heard American Lives before. I was sort of immediately taken with the drum intro. Like I was like right feeling those drums. So this song, I haven't really listened to this type of screaming, angry music since college. Ever so often I'll play like Atreyu or Blood Brothers or something. But, this, I don't dive that much into this, but I really liked it. And the way you described it as like a wall of noise sort of perfectly sums it up. Like I'll admit I had a hard time making out the lyrics the first 2 times, but you could just feel the anger. And I think at the end of the day, that's all that matters. It's like, I'm not 100% sure what you're angry about, but I'm fucking angry too. Let's rage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to keep saying this. Like, there's not a single song on anyone's playlist that I didn't like. These are all awesome songs. All right. So I'll do mine. In 10th, I have Americans by Janelle Monáe. In 9th, I have Youth Against Fascism by Sonic Youth. And in 8th, I have All Right by Kendrick Lamar. So when I was saying earlier that like some of these songs, if you listen to you wouldn't maybe necessarily immediately hear what they're about or think they're protest songs. And I think Americans by Janelle Monáe sort of sums it up. Like if you're only half paying attention, you might almost think it's like a super patriotic song. And it has almost like a joyous, fun quality to the musicianship of it. And I think Janelle Monáe is one of the brilliant visionary artists of our time. Like if you haven't heard her stuff, especially the album Dirty Computer, which this is a part of, I think it's just brilliant. She said that she was inspired by a speech Obama gave in 2008 to write this song. But when you really start breaking it down, the song talks about all of the injustices marginalized people face in America these days. Black people, women, LGBTQ, Latinx people, people of lower income. And then there's this incredible spoken verse element that happens about halfway through the song, where it says stuff like, until women can get equal pay for equal work, this is not my America. Until same gender loving people can be who they are, this is not my America. Until Black people can come home from a police stop without being shot in the head, this is not my America. Until poor whites can get a shot at being successful, this is not my America. I can't hear nobody talking to me. And I think the song really effectively sums up so many of the issues facing our country right now in a way that's really powerful, while also being like a fun bop of a song. And I think that's sort of the power of Janelle Monáe. So my next song is Youth Against Fascism. I mean, I love Sonic Youth. They're a great noise rock band. This song is so badass to listen to. And obviously, personally, out of all of the like injustices and things to protest against, fascism rings very close to home because fascism is really just Nazism in a different name. And this song is like very literal in its approach. It's right there in the title. But this song tears apart the KKK, racism, Nazis, sexism, even talks about like a presidential administration that's thirsty for war. And one thing that really stood out to me is they have a lyric in the song that says, "I believe Anita Hill." The song is super focused and like clear in its intent, but of all the ones on my list, this is one that resonated with me most on a personal level. And I also just think it's a great song. I mean, like I said, Sonic Youth is an incredible band. And then All Right by Kendrick Lamar. I wasn't sure if I wanted to include this or not because it speaks to things that I don't personally experience, things that I see. But I think, you know, as a white man in America, like it's partly my job to call out these things anyways and be aware of them. And, you know, this song really, since it premiered in 2015, and for what it's worth, I think this album, To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar, is brilliant. I think Kendrick Lamar is one of the great artists of our time. I think his lyrics and his messaging is incredible. This song has really become like an anthem for the Black Lives Matter movement. Besides the fact being like, I think the song in its composition and construction is incredible. And I think Kendrick's flow is amazing. This is a song that's like a screed against police violence and the way Black bodies are murdered and treated by police, and systemic racism, but it also gets very personal into Kendrick's own struggles as a Black man in America. And I think this song is a really good sister song to a song that comes up later in my list. But what I find so interesting about this song is there's a repeated refrain of "We gonna be all right." And I think despite being so angry and passionate, it also has an element of hope to it that I think that's why it's become sort of an anthem for the Black Lives Matter movement, because the song points out the injustices and says, we need to take care of this shit. This can't keep happening, but, you know, we are going to be all right. And there's power to that. I mean, I think not protest songs don't always have to be like dour or down or hopeless. You can raise awareness and then hope that it's going to get better. Tim, what do you think of these?
Yeah, I had never actually I haven't heard any of, like, I know who Janelle Monáe is, but I've never actually listened to any of her music. And I really, really, really enjoyed this song. Like you said, it's just got a very popular, like pleasing, like pop, like feel to it. Very catchy, but like the lyrics are super deep and super, like I'm going to read the one that specifically spoke to me was I pledge allegiance to the flag, learn the words from my mom and dad, cross my heart and hope to die with a big old piece of American pie. Mm-hmm. And like you can kind of take that two ways, you know, depending on like what is going on kind of around you. Like, I think it's obviously like, you know, a jab at, you know, maybe like our nationalistic ways in terms of like, you know, we're taught the Pledge of Allegiance, which there's not necessarily anything wrong with it, but you're just kind of like force fed it at a young age and expected to like rehearse it in school. Like, at least I was. I don't know. I think it's kind of like lightening up a little bit, but definitely was for me. And then the whole, like, to top it off with like, you know, what's more American than American pie? Like it's just very like I took it as a very poignant jab, and I really appreciated it. But I think it also can be spun in like a positive way, I think, too, is depending on like where you're at and like what's going on around you. But yeah, I really like this song. I actually added it to like, I had like this other playlist that kind of highlights like really great like female singers and artists, and so I threw it on that playlist.
Oh, nice.
I really like this song. And then Youth Against Fascism. I mean, yeah, Sonic Youth is an incredible band. I mean, what's his name? Thurston Moore, right? The guitar player. He's like one of the best guitarists, you know, around. And yeah, I mean, just super like in your face and you know, very specific message against, you know, as you said, Nazism. I mean, it's not good.
Nope. No, it's not.
And I mean, it's got really great. I just think Sonic Youth is just really cool with their instrumentals overall. In general, they're always very unique, and I appreciate that. And then All Right, I'm also, unfortunately, I need to get more into like, because I like a lot of like rap and hip hop, but I'm kind of stuck in like in like the era I grew up in, like, like I'm very focused on like the 90s and like early 2000s hip hop. So I'm familiar with some of his songs, but not all of his songs. I need to get more into it, but I really like this song, and I agree with your opinion on it in terms of like, I mean, with protest songs, I mean, I think in just protests in general, I think the idea is one of hope in general, because it's like, like you said, bringing awareness and, using your voice to highlight these issues. But I think specifically, also especially to like people that don't know, that won't experience them, like me, like you, and that way, we can empathize with these people, with them, and then fight for them. And I just feel like that is kind of like the idea of a protest song. And I feel like this song is very hopeful, in spite of like the anger. The anger is there, and you understand the anger, but there's also a message of hope in there that I really appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that protesting in and of itself is an act of hope, because if you didn't have hope that things could get better, you wouldn't take the time to protest against them to begin with. You would just sit at home and wallow. What about you, David? What are your thoughts on these three?
I've never heard. I mean, I've heard of like Kendrick Lamar and like Sonic Youth, and I've heard of Janelle, but mostly because I loved her in Hidden Figures. But I've never heard like their music, and like I'll be honest, like Kendrick Lamar's sound isn't something I normally gravitate towards too. So it's very interesting hearing like that sound and the way he does it. And I'm not denying he doesn't do it well. It's just a noise that doesn't particularly speak to me. But legitimately, the one I really want to talk about is Americans by Janelle Monáe, because this song, holy crap, it legitimately blew me away with how seamless everything is in this song. Like, it's a genius arrangement and it's amazing production, and like immediately I hear everything. Like it's like, if you can describe like black music, like this song is it. It has jazz, it has funk, it has R&B, it has gospel, it has literal gospel church music in it. It's got that message in it too. Like speaking of lyrics that stood out to me, the one that stood out to me the most was like, die in church, live in jail, say her name twice in hell. Uncle Sam kissed a man, Jim Crow Jesus rose again. I was like, damn, this song's spitting hot fire. That song to me, man, like I'm gonna go and like go through all her stuff, because that song to me was like, wow, I didn't know this existed.
She's incredible, and I've been lucky enough to see her in concert, and she just blew me away. I mean, just incredible.
And I mean, I also echo everything Tim Franco said. Like, yeah, like Nazis are bad. I was really close. There's another band on here that I have a little bit further down my line, but they have a song. Literally, it's just literally called Alt Right, and it's literally a song about beating up people on the alt right. And I was really close to putting it in too, because I was like, this feels super relevant. But I was like, I'm sure someone will have something similar. Like, there's no way. It's the same reason why other bands I was going to put on, I didn't. One of them I did, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, solid tracks, all with great, obviously like great messages. But the one that stood out to me the most, I'm legit like so excited. I'm like, I found a new artist that I'm very excited about.
Yeah, I love that I could introduce the music guy to a different artist he wasn't familiar with. That's exciting,
dude. Like, because this is the story of my life. Because everyone's like, have you heard of? And I'm like, man, you know how much music we have in the span of history? Like, there's bound to be stuff I haven't heard that you did. But
all right, Tim.
I'm excited for it. Like, legit, it was so good, man.
Awesome. I'm glad. Of course. Yeah, thank you. All right, Tim. It's your turn for 7, 6, and 5.
Okay, 7, 6, and 5. So at 7 we have "Fuck Authority" by Pennywise. Yep, you're just gonna put it right there in the title. There you go. And then we have another System of a Down appearing here. We got System of a Down "Prison Song" from Toxicity, and then we have another Anti-Flag song, big shocker. We have "Turncoat" from the Terror State. So yeah, I mean, Pennywise, they're very, aggressive, kind of like another one of those, like, very politically leaning punk bands, that came up with like the whole epitaph scene with like Rancid and Bad Religion. And this song, I mean, it's super catchy, and it's just, if you're like angry at something, I feel like this is a good angry punk song while also being super catchy, and you can definitely like understand like the lyrics pretty easily on first time listen and just sing along to them, because really it's just, you know, it's just about fucking authority. Prison Song. This is actually my favorite System of a Down song. Maybe that's a hot take, I don't know, but I love this song. I think the instrumentals are super like interesting and kind of strange, and I love the whole like, I don't know if it's a hook or what it is, but the little hook with Darren singing, "I buy my crack, my smack, my bitch right here in Hollywood." But yeah, this song is just, you know, it's about it's about the government trying to basically control us and put us in a prison, essentially through control. And it's specifically highlighting like drugs and the use of drugs and the profiteering off of drugs by the government. And that specifically speaks to like around the minority community, and also like the unfair treatment of like the it's kind of calling for like the legalization or less stringent laws around penalties around drugs, because, you know, as the song even says, you know, treatment works over like throwing someone in jail, and increasing law enforcement is not going to help the situation. Whereas if you invest in a community and invest in treating the problem, that actually will result in that will give you results. And then Turncoat, this is a anti-flag song that's from the Bush era. However, I really find this song like more so from the Bush era to just like really hit the nail on the head for the Trump era. So sorry, we're gonna get political here, but yeah. But
nobody could have anticipated a show called Protest Songs to get
it's basically saying that the government, you know, has free reign, and they, you know, the person in power is a criminal, is a liar, is a thief, and a killer, and they're protected by the law. Which is, I mean, that's the last 4 years we've seen that essentially. Like, they think they're untouchable, and they use that power and they abuse that power to push us down. And I think this song, it's like very simple. It's not very loud and in your face, but the lyrics I feel like are pretty powerful. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 3 more awesome choices. I mean, I've made my love for System of a Down clear. Prison Song is incredible. I agree with you that it's a little weird, and that's kind of what makes it fun. Anti-Flag, the great thing about Anti-Flag is their messaging is clear. They're like as political as a band gets, but their songs are also so fun. Like David was saying earlier, like you're sort of like skipping down the street. Like this song is like, yeah, I totally get what it's saying. And I agree that even though it was a Bush era song, it's like super resonant now to the Trump era politics, because fuck that guy into the sun. But the song made me like unexpectedly happy. I was like, do. And Pennywise, I've heard some of their stuff before. I wasn't that familiar. I really like this song. It sort of hits hard. Like, I really like the guitar in the intro. And, you know, this is another one of those songs where you know what you're getting right there in the title, Fuck Authority, which, yeah, stick it to the man, whatever you want to say. So 3 more great songs. You guys nailed your assignment. A+, well done.
Also, I wanted to say on Fuck Authority, another interesting fact about that song is since it came out in 2001, it was later banned from airplay after 9/11.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I echo everything Max said. Like, I've heard some Pennywise here and there. I've never done like a super deep dive on them, but I knew who they were. But if someone were to ask you like what's like a quintessential like punk rock fuck the man song, like that song is it. It's right there. It's not mincing words. It's heavy the way a punk rock song should be heavy. It's in your face. It's abrasive. It's angry. It's a perfect fuck the man song, literally. Prison Song. I always tend to gravitate. Not to say that System of a Down overall isn't kind of a weird heavy band sonically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always loved like the really offbeat songs more than like the straight up aggressive stuff. But this one kind of like starts that like where you can kind of see like the shades of them getting experimental with the sounds and the scales and like what a normal quote unquote metal musician wouldn't use a particular scale, they would, and this somehow sounds heavier but weirder because they use it. And like Present Song is a perfect example of that sonically. And then of course the song itself, the weird like timing and like the beat and like the lyrics and everything about it. It's a classic, and it's such a banger of an opener. Like it's such a ballsy opener for an album. That's so
Yeah.
it's perfect. I love it. But and then Turncoat too. Again, it's like yeah, like Max said, like this is one of the songs I was like a little too busy like skipping down the street, like oh, and then it's guitar. But the next time I listen to it, I'm like, oh yeah, they are murderous pigs. Whoa.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, man. A plus, I agree. A double plus.
One of the lyrics, I believe it is, it makes me want to douse myself in gasoline. So as you're running down the street, that's what you sing that, and you're like, oh, did I just say that? Oh, I guess yeah, okay.
All my neighbors looking at me like, what's wrong with him?
Some of these songs are definitely ones where like you'd find yourself singing along to, like on the street or on the subway, and then it's too late before you realize you said like super inflammatory stuff that people are going to give you serious side eye. Like, ooh, let's stay away from that guy. Yeah. All right, David, what do you got for your next three?
Oh, what do I have? I have jazz guy had to put one jazz song on there. I got Fables of Faubus by Charles Mingus, All Americant by Vanna, and Fortune Teller by Stray the Path. So I had to put one jazzy tune in there. But as far as jazz tunes go, to me it's like the most punk rock jazz tune of all time. So just to get a little back history, Charles Mingus originally composed this song in 1957 and it was released in 1959 on Columbia Records, and it was a protest song against the Arkansas governor Orville Faubus, who in 1957 sent out the National Guard to prevent racial integration of Little Rock Central High School by 9 African American teenagers in what is now known as the Little Rock Crisis. So, interesting note though, the original song had lyrics in it, but Columbia was like so scared of like backlash or stuff like that they forbid Mingus from putting lyrics on it. So Fables of Faubus, the first time it was released in 1959, 1958. Well, all right, it was released in 1959, let's say that. It was completely instrumental piece. And then like a couple of years later, he released it. But he had to release it under another name because Columbia owned the rights to that song. So he called it Original Fables of Faubus. And the lyrics were, oh Lord, don't let him shoot us. Oh Lord, don't let him stab us. Oh Lord, no more swastikas. Oh Lord, no more Ku Klux Klan. And it's so crazy to think about. This song was 60 years ago, 60 plus years ago now. And how like it's unfortunately still so fucking relevant today too. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
if you listen to it, it's a jazz tune in the sense of like it has jazz drums, it has jazz instrumentation, but the music itself, like if I were to describe an image of what the music portrays, it portrays like a guy just drunk on power, just like he's just a big fat bloated motherfucker, does not give a shit about anyone. He's like, I'm the fucking man. When he's just like wobbling around, just like pushing his weight against everything because there's no consequence for him. And the song is very clearly trying to depict the governor as like this stupid idiot who's like stopping progress and doesn't understand like how history is going to view him as an idiot moving on forward. So I had to put that song on there because like it's not to say that jazz itself isn't political. It's very much a political genre of music. But I feel like this is a particularly great example of like how jazz was used as like an actual protest fuck the man song. So for anyone who's never heard of Charles Mingus, especially Fables of Faubus, please go check that song out. Check the instrumentation version first, Fables of Faubus, and then go check out the ones with the actual singing in it, original Fables of Faubus. All Americant is by a band I particularly love. The first time I ever saw them was the first time I met them at Vans Warped Tour, where they were just walking around being like, hey man, you look like you would enjoy our music. And then the band just started talking to me one day at Vans Warped Tour. And ever since then I was like, I'm a fucking fan. So, and this is from the first album, All Americant. And it's very much a song about how like, how do I describe it? Like Americans thinking like we know everything. Like we know what's right, what's wrong. We're living the best life. We have all the great things happening in our lives and stuff like that. But we're not. Like we're a bunch of like we're kind of a disease. We're kind of like forcing people into our way of thinking. Well, we can't accept other people into like just accepting who they are as individuals. So I just love the way the lyrics start too. The red, white, black, and blue, broken and used, obsessed with this disease. We put the world on its knees, obsessed with our needs while our mouths rot and bleed. Each man creates his own devil and God for the throne, hoping for heaven, but we're heading for hell. We call this living and we're doing it well. And it's just very much about like the American dream and how bloated we've kind of become in that idea, if that makes sense. Like thinking like the idea of like that individualism, like we'll conquer everything, push everyone aside, and like step on people on our way up because that's the American dream. You do what you can to get ahead, and not realizing how we're actually making the world worse because of our selfish individualism. So that's why I love that song. And also the band, just again, angry as fuck. So speaking of angry, the next band is, I would say, if Rage Against the Machine had a baby, this would be Rage Against the Machine Jr., like modern and just heavy. So the next song I chose is my personal favorite from this band too, called Fortune Teller by Stray from the Path. And it's just pretty much a fuck you, man, like stand up for yourself, do what's right type of song. Like the main lyric or the main hook is like fire walk with me. You build a bridge, we'll burn it down. Like it's just a very much like a fucking get up, do it yourself, like fire walk with me. So you just gotta listen to it. Like every time I hear that song, dude, it's either like I'm getting ready to work out, I'm getting ready to like go do some heavy cardio, or I'm about to shove some people in a mosh pit. Because holy crap, every time I hear that song, I'm just like, it's like a espresso shot. I just gotta like do something. So
I'm glad. I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
I'm glad you mentioned Rage with Stray from the Path, because that's the vibe I got a lot from it, is Rage Against the Machine. And I really like the song. I really like the guitar hook. All American is very angry. Like,
yeah, it is.
Super, super angry, a lot of screaming, but it was fun to listen to. And, Fables of Fabius is incredible. I like jazz a lot, not to be like Ryan Gosling in La La Land, but I do enjoy jazz. I wish I knew more about jazz. I have actually seen Mingus Big Band perform. Obviously, Charles has been gone a long time, but he has a orchestra that his widow manages, and they play in New York every week up until the pandemic. So I've been lucky enough to see them, and they're really incredible. I've heard this song before because Mingus is one of the jazz artists that's been on my radar. I actually wasn't familiar with the story you just told about it having lyrics and them taking them away. So that adds a whole other texture to it. But it's a great track. And I agree, jazz is political. Just because music doesn't have lyrics doesn't mean it's not political, because the best music is about the feeling that it brings up inside of you, apart from anything literal that lyrics can deliver. What are your thoughts, Tim?
I hadn't heard any of these songs, and I loved all of them. So when the Fables of Fabius came on, I was like, all right, we got some jazz here, and I know it's just going to be instrumentals. I assumed it was going to be all instrumental. So I'm like, I got to listen to this, and then after that, I got to go and I got to learn more about the song so I can understand the story and what's being told. And so I did a small deep dive on the song. I haven't gone. I need to go listen to the lyrical version because I actually haven't done that yet. So I need to do that. But I really thought it was cool, the story behind it in terms, and just hearing you describe it now with a guy just walking around just kind of abusing his power, and just kind of it brought up an image of an old political cartoon being animated essentially. So you have this obese white man that's just got I don't know, people in his pockets, coming out of his pockets, and he's walking strolling down the street, and the song, that is the song playing in the background. And it's kind of it's highlighting this injustice, but it's also kind of lampooning this individual and making fun of him essentially, which is well deserved, because he sounded like he was a complete ass and jackass. But Yeah, I really liked it, and I mean, every time I hear jazz, I really enjoy it. I don't know a lot about jazz, but every time I hear a jazz song, I always end up like loving it. That's why I love soul so much. I thought soul was great because of all that. But yeah, this song is great. And then the other two songs, yeah, I hadn't heard them, but they kicked ass. All American, I agree with like what you were saying about it. Like it's kind of like Americans are kind of like drones and like sheep, and we'll just kind of follow like whatever. I mean, obviously not everyone, because we are not that way, but the vast majority in these systems end up being like that. There's not a lot of followers and not a lot of leaders, and unfortunately, the followers follow the wrong leaders. And then Fortune Teller, I got very, very heavy rage vibes from them, like you said. So it's cool that you mentioned that. And it was just a kick-ass song.
It's a banger of a song, dude.
Yeah,
and I appreciate the fire, because they were the ones that had the fire walk with me in the lyric, right?
Yeah.
Because that made me think of Twin Peaks, but
hey man, art is subjective in that way, bro. It's perfectly fine.
All right, I'll go for my next three. So we got Peace Sells by Megadeth. I mentioned Megadeth may appear again, and it does. God Saves the Queen by the Sex Pistols, and Psycho by Muse. So, like I said, I love metal, especially 80s metal. Megadeth's incredible. Peace Sells, just apart from the political undertones, is just an incredible song. The bass riff that it starts with is fucking incredible. I believe it was so popular at the time they used it for the intro for MTV News on MTV when they actually were a music channel.
Yeah.
But this song is like a raging screed against the military-industrial complex. And I like the questions it raises. Every country says they want peace, but do they really? Are they just using peace as sort of an idea to trick people? Because it's been shown time and time again that when countries are at war and fighting, they often profit more from oil and all this other stuff. The other thing that I love about this song is how it's really it's attacking the stereotypes of metal music and what these artists and musicians can accomplish and be and stand for. But the line of lyric that really stands out to me is, "Tell me something, it's still we the people," right? There's an idea of what a politician or someone in charge can be that doesn't have to be the case. I think this song is saying anyone, whether it be a metal head or whatever, can be a politician and can rise up and take charge. And I think that's really powerful, and also just an awesome song. I mean, what can you say about God Saves the Queen? This is an iconic punk classic. Obviously, it's attacking the British government as opposed to the American, but our assignment wasn't inherently American. And this song was hugely controversial. They wouldn't play it on the radio. BBC wouldn't play it because it basically compares the monarchy to fascism, which I don't necessarily think is a wrong choice. And I think the song is just making a point that no one entity or one thing should be in charge. There needs to be change. There needs to be differing viewpoints. And when you have a monarchy where it's just based on lineage and heirs, and Britain has prime ministers and stuff, but still the buck stops with the monarchy. And this song is an incredible attack against that. But I also think it's a great ode to the working class people of England, the people who really matter and who make a society function far more above than just anyone in the monarchy. And it's just a great punk song, the riffs, and it just makes you want to thrash out and have fun. Okay, so the next is Psycho by Muse. Muse has a lot of political and protest songs. I think one of their most obvious choices is Uprising, which I almost went with, but I ultimately decided to go with Psycho. So this is from the album Drones, which is really a concept album, and it tells a story about a guy who joins the army, becomes brainwashed into becoming a killing machine, and then eventually defects and rises up against the army that manipulated him. This song in particular is exactly the moment when the brainwashing happens. If you listen to the lyrics, it's literally saying about being a psycho. And I don't want to necessarily say I'm entirely anti-military. I think there is a place and we need people to serve and protect, but I do think the dehumanization of the military, the way it takes these young boys and shapes them into killing machines, the way it preys on, trying to recruit lower income people, Black people who think they have no other path, who can't get into college or can't afford to go to college and who end up in the military. And then instead of actually protecting and serving, they're just turned into weapons of war without a human face to them. And I think this song really sums that up well, as the whole album does. I mean, I think it's a great listening experience, but also this song just fucking rocks. Like, it shreds so hard. Like, the guitar riffs, and like the album Muse did prior to this one delved more into their like electronic side, and this sort of returned back to their more hard rock roots. And it has the electronic elements, but I think like the composition and musicality and orchestrations on this song, like so much of Muse, is incredible. So like that riff that just keeps playing throughout, even apart from the lyrics, just really like empowers me and makes me want to rage out. What do you think, Tim?
Muse is one of my favorite bands, so I love that you put them on here. I love that two of these songs have a kind of like, as you said, like a very like, I mean, I'm not saying that, like you said, I'm not saying it in a negative way, but kind of like an anti-military, or like kind of like questioning the use of the military is maybe a better way of putting it. But Megadeth, I mean, classic, rock song, kind of like talking about, does it really matter? I mean, peace. I mean, is anyone really interested in that in the world we live in? And even though this song came out a long time ago, it's still relevant today because, unfortunately, there's a lot of profit in war and a lot of profit in the military. And Psycho, it's kind of the same thing. And I appreciate that it's a story, though, with like, a character going through this. And I have a song on my list that's very similar in that as well, in terms of it being a story and specifically around war and military. And also this song, I don't mean this in a negative way, although I think the person is not necessarily the best person, but I get very like specific vibes of like Beautiful People from this song, like from Marilyn Manson. It's got a very similar like guitar sound, and then like when they're saying we're gonna make you, we're gonna break you, that has a very similar like Beautiful People sound to it, which I grew up in that era, so I appreciate that as well. And then God Save the Queen. I mean, Sex Pistols, I was obsessed with Sex Pistols when I like really got into punk rock in high school. I mean, Johnny Rotten, Sid Vicious, the whole gang, Mick Jones. But this song specifically, I think this is probably their best song, their most acclaimed song. And this song was going to be on my list, but then I like cut it to put more Anti-Flag on. Because I was like, I'm sure someone's going to put Sex Pistols on the list. And then if there wasn't, I was probably going to take one of my songs off and put this one on there because I feel like it belongs on here.
Obviously, I felt the same way.
Yeah, and this song, like, I mean, it got them in a lot of trouble, obviously, because these are things that and then the imagery they used as well. It was very not cool at the time, and probably still, I mean, would be not cool in some circles over there. But I mean, they were just kind of saying it like it was, saying it like how they felt, growing up in the working class and seeing their parents in the working class, because they were just kids, but they're seeing their parents struggle, and they're probably coming from families that have like had struggle for a long time. So, when you see that and you kind of feel like the boot down on your face for such a long period of time, you kind of got to let it out. And that kind of like sums up the punk rock genre, but specifically the Sex Pistols, they were like a very like brief thing because there was a lot of drama. Obviously, people know, maybe you do or don't. A lot of drama behind the scenes with them, but they were pretty incredible while they were here. And
when I first like got into punk and started exploring like the classic bands like Sex Pistols and the Clash and stuff, I remember thinking like, shouldn't there be more Sex Pistols music? There's not that much of it. And then when I
they really only have one album. So
never mind the bollocks. I did the research. I was like, oh yeah, but I mean, if you're only going to make one album, that's the album.
That whole album is great too. I mean, I don't think there's a single song I don't love on that song. I mean, Pretty Vacant's amazing. But yeah, Anarchy in the UK, obviously, that was another one I was potentially on my list. But one thing I wanted to say, a cool thing about the Sex Pistols, this is just a fun fact, but my dad actually saw their last concert in San Francisco right before they broke up, and like when Johnny Rotten was on the stage, and he like, this is like a known thing that he said, but he was like, do you ever get the feeling you're being fucked? And then like shortly after that, they kind of like broke up as a band, and there was a whole downward spiral, obviously, with Sid Vicious and Nancy and everything. So
wow.
But yeah, I thought that was really cool. My dad wasn't even into punk, but he was
there.
He went to that concert in the 80s. Yeah.
Wow. All right, Dave, what are your thoughts on these three?
I was gonna put Peace Sells for my Megadeth song, but I also kind of figured like I hope Max puts it. If anyone can put it, I hope it's Max. So, and you did. And then, oh man, I forgot about Psycho and that album by Muse, and I love that album. So when I
Yep.
saw that, I was like, oh shit, that's right, the concept album. That song is like, oh my god, dude, that opening right.
Yep. So
I love,
good.
and then the lyrics too, man, is such a like the yelling sergeant in between like the verses and the stanzas and what have you. It's like, are you a psycho killer? Are you a psycho?
Mhm.
It's like it's maddening. Like when you listen to it too, you're just
Yeah.
like, Jesus, what? And it's a oh, that album.
It's
But
got to
that's
be one of their like most aggressive songs. I
It
feel like.
is. Yeah, I think
it's
so.
definitely
And
it,
I saw the drones. I've seen Muse live more than any other band. I saw the Drones tour a couple of times, and every time they played this song, they obviously are a big multimedia band, so they would have like a 30-foot tall visual of an army sergeant yelling at the audience, and it always gave me chills, and like the impact of it was so deeply felt.
I saw them once live here in Houston too, and it was like
Yeah, I saw them live.
it had like a revolving stage. I don't know what
Yep.
tour it was, and they had like the curtains, and they would put images on the curtains. So it just
I think that's the Drones tour.
yeah, I saw them too, and I remember that song. I was like, I liked Muse prior to that. Like I had a couple of hits from them that I really loved, but that song was like, what the? Wow, this is an angry Muse. What happened? They went from like happy electronic music to like, are you a psycho killer? So, but yeah, and then God Save the Queen, man, Sex Pistols. Yep, like I was actually kind of expecting Mr. Franco to put that on his playlist. So.
Like I said, they would have been if they weren't on here by someone else. I was gonna
So,
veto.
yeah. And it's like weird too, because like I know like Sex Pistols came first, but like they kind of gave me like jet vibes. You know what I mean? Like that guitar
Yeah.
riff just gives me some
Yeah.
jet vibes. Stuff like that. But it's punk, but it's not heavily leaning towards punk. It also kind of has a little bit of that rock edge to it of the time, almost like an AC/DC kind of like rocky edge to it.
Yeah,
But
I mean, a lot of the British like punk kind of went that route because obviously like
Yeah.
the Clash are definitely not like hardcore punk. They're very broad.
I almost
It's
speaking of the Clash, almost put Clamp Down on my list.
I love the Clampdown. Yeah,
Almost.
so good.
But yeah, a very again, Max continues very
Yeah.
just whimsical, eclectic.
Eclectic, yeah. I try to spread the love in different genres because
There's one song that you put on there that I was like it was like completely out of left field for me personally, and I ended up really loving it. I hope you know which one it is. I haven't seen it
maybe.
yet.
I mean, I have an idea. I hope it's the one I'm thinking. So
All right, Tim. Let's get your 4, 3, and 2.
okay. At 4 we have American by Descendants. We have 1 by Metallica, and then Christian Nationalists by There They Are Again, Anti-Flag. So, Descendants, I'm repping my Descendants shirt tonight for the stream. Descendants are just a great like old school punk band that like started in like the early 90s, and they like they've kind of like been very underground their entire like career, and they're still around to this day, and they're just really great. And this song specifically, like it came out again during the Bush era, but like it's highlighting like it's kind of like pros and cons of like American history essentially. And it's like, you know, like sure there's good things, but then it's like there's a lot of bad things, and it's really, you know, we have to like kind of like accept and like recognize our faults and in order to like become better. And I think that's a problem that we have as a country to this day, obviously, but like calling out, you know, slavery, calling out racism, calling out you know, war, all these things that are bad. And like, and the chorus is particularly great because it's like, you know, I don't care who I am, I'm just another stupid American, which is kind of sums up like the majority of the population. Unfortunately, like the education is so bad in this country, like a lot of people like just are ignorant or don't know our history, and like there's a lot of bad in it. And I think the lyric that speaks most to me in this song that I feel pretty much every year is I'm proud and ashamed every 4th of July, because it's like, you know, you can be proud of your country, but there's also a lot of things not to be proud of this country, and you have to recognize those things and acknowledge them. So yeah, this song's great. And again, it's whimsical. So this song is not whimsical, and that's one. It's really great though, but it's one by Metallica. So yeah, this song is a very heavy like anti-war song, and it basically if the music video is like kind of like adds like another level to it, because essentially they bought the rights to the film. So there was a film called Johnny Got His Gun, which is like an anti-war film about World War One, with like Jason Robards and some other people. But they used the music, they used like the story from that kind of inspired the song, and then they used the movie in the music video for clips. But essentially, it's an anti-war song about a young man who goes off to war because that's the patriotic thing to do, and he's kind of spurned on by his family to do that because it's the right thing to do. It's the way, and he goes and it destroys him. I mean, he loses all of his limbs. He loses his ability to talk. He loses his sight. He can hear, but he can't communicate, and he's stuck. He comes back and he's stuck in the hospital and he can't communicate, and he's trying to like communicate with those around him, and he can hear them, but they can't hear him. And it's just his thoughts. And so the song is like his thoughts within his head about, what he's going through and how he can like end this. Basically, he wants to end his life because he doesn't want to live in this hell that he's like, that war has gotten him to, essentially. But I mean, I think the use of like the guitar and like the drums are like used to kind of like mimic like battle sounds, specifically like bullets and guns firing, and it's got some of the best like Kirk Hammett music guitars in this song. It's just, this song is amazing. I remember like when I first heard this song, I was just kind of like blown away, and I didn't it was it's crazy. And then Christian Nationalists move on to this song. So Anti-Flag released an album last year, 2020, and it's kind of like very poignant around Trump, obviously, you can see from the image there. But this song is just about, the whole like religious fanaticism we deal with, specifically in this country, but it goes on across the world. But we specifically see it in our country, and the fact that there's like, we should strive for a separation of church and state, and we should strive for like being better, and it's fine if you're religious, but religion doesn't necessarily have to mean hate. And I think that's kind of like the message of this. And I just think it's a great song, and I love the intro when it's saying history is rife with the likes of you, because throughout time we've always dealt with fanatical religion in politics and in leadership, and I think this is a song calling that out, and they're calling it out, and they want to be better, essentially. And it's kind of a victory song over it as well, I feel like.
So of all the anti-flag songs you included, I actually think Christian Nationalist is my favorite, which kind of surprised me listening to all of them. I just really like it sonically, musically, and I also am a big proponent of, especially as someone who's not Christian, how it so erroneously gets talked about how this is a Christian nation, where that's really not the case. I mean, First of all, I mean, at its bare minimum, there's supposed to be separation of church and state, which is baked into the Constitution. But I mean, there's so many other religions: Judaism, Muslim, Wiccan, Christian Scientists, whatever it is. And so I'm always a proponent to rally against that notion and say, okay, I can respect your religion, but then you have to respect mine and recognize that it's not just one way. Descendants is interesting because, obviously they've been around a long time, but this, if I'm not mistaken, this song came out like around 2004, right in the throes of the Bush era. So even though they were like a 70s punk band, this song sounds so much to me like 2000s era Green Day. Like, to me, this song and American Idiot, which, spoiler alert, we'll talk about soon, are like cousins to each other, both in terms of what they're saying, but also orally. Like the guitar work and vocals are very much Green Day to me. And then look, one is, I think, one of Metallica's greatest songs. It's Gorgeous, which I know is weird to sound about a metal band, but I think Metallica always made really beautiful songs. And if you haven't heard Symphony of Metallica, I think that just like exemplifies how beautiful their songwriting is, even though they are thrashing metal. This is such a great choice. I didn't even think about including Metallica, but I guess because I had Megadeth on there, it didn't even occur to me to put on both. But what are your thoughts, David?
It did occur to me to put on Metallica, but especially like something from like off of Master of Puppets. But I kind of figured,
Master.
yeah, that song, and then also Disposable Heroes, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So but I don't know. I was like, I didn't want it to be a metal playlist, if that made sense. So I was like,
Mhm.
Megadeth was like the original thrash political band in my opinion, and arguably right. But yeah, Americans to me, honestly, to me, that song stood out to me a lot because it kind of gave me like Offspring vibes more than Green Day vibes to me
Sure.
personally.
Mhm.
Even though I could probably say probably Descendants more than likely inspired Offspring more than
Yeah.
like vice versa. So that song was really cool. Obviously, Metallica 1, super familiar with it. The machine gun riffing in it with the so like very, it's like a very great, it's a great way of how like music can like depict emotions, but it can also depict a literal thing. In this case, an actual machine gun in a
Mhm.
very like effective, brutal, honest way. And then James is screaming, "Darkness imprisoning me, all that I see, absolute." And you just hear like these guns going off, and it's like, if you guys haven't seen the movie slash concert of Metallica, oh shoot, with what's his face from Spider Man. Gosh darn it, I'm blanking on the actor's name, but he stars in the Metallica movie slash live concert, and I forget the name of of that DVD. But they have a huge set
I know
for
what
when
you're
they.
talking about, but I can't remember the name of it. And I can't remember the actor.
I'm blanking out right now. What's the kid's name? He was also in the
Oh,
Chronic.
my case said Dane DeHaan.
Dane DeHaan, yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Yes, yes, yes. He stars in it. He doesn't say a single word. It's like a kid going through like a city because he needs to retrieve something from Metallica. Through the Never. Thank you. Yes, Metallica Through the Never. Thank you, Mike. Coming in clutch. There's a really like they play that song, they have a really great scene, and it's like there's fire and stuff, and it really depicts well like what they were trying to do sonically with that. So I recommend, if not for the actual storyline, which is like whatever. Visually it's stunning. The concert's a banger. I mean, Metallica puts on a great live show. So, and then Christian Nationalist too, man. Like that was the angriest punk song you put on there. So I was like, yeah, bro. Like, so yeah, that song was like, and then you have Trump's face on it, and it's like they're not trying to beat around the bush for what they're trying to
No.
do with what they're saying. So I was like, I appreciated the message, and it was just an angry punk. Whereas like the other songs were like they had good messages, but I was kind of skipping along. This one kind of made me go, "Oh, I need to walk straight."
I don't know.
All right.
One other thing I want to say throughout Christian
No, go
Nationalists, they're calling them, they're calling them fascists throughout the song for the most part, but then at the end they change the lyric from fascist to terrorist, which I find kind of interesting, especially like in light of like recent events that we've experienced in this country. So yeah, that kind of like changed that for me a little bit more and was more meaningful, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right, David, what do you got for us?
What do I have for you? I have Justice by Oxymorons, White America's Beautiful Black Market by Let Live, and No Lives Matter by Body Count. So these bands to me were very important because like they feature um, people of color doing what would you could arguably say was predominantly run by like male white musicians. So Justice is like people of color bands. It's like what I was saying earlier about the whole urban punk thing, where it's like it's punk rock, but it's also rap. What I really liked about this song in particular, besides it just being a catchy punk rock song, was the band's statement about the song. So just to read it real quick, justice is more than a song, but an act of solidarity with the people. All revenue from streaming, merchandise, and downloads, both now and in the future, from this song will be given back to the community through various charities, nonprofits, and movements. We want this to be a never-ending cycle to our people to continue to develop the youth, enhance our culture, and fight the inequalities that we have suffered for too long. And the whole song's just about it's just about like the idea of justice and how they're tired of like America's idea of justice. It's like it's not really justice. They call it justice, but it's really like superficial and artificial. And it's just a song about being tired of it, being tired of seeing like the same crap every day on the TV, how nothing's changed, but they're being like justice was served, but it's like really, but what justice was served. So it's just a catchy punk rock. Like it's more of like a alternative punk rock song in it in terms of the riffage, not like a straight punk riff. But the rapping in it, the singing in it, which also gives me kind of like metalcore vibes in it. I really dig what this band is doing. Very small, very indie. Not a lot of people know them, so I just wanted to put a spotlight on them for this one. And then White America's Beautiful Black Market by Let Live. The singer in it, Jason Allen Butler. The sound of Let Live, if I were to describe it too, they were everything. It was weird because it's like you guys heard it. It's like very like soulful, almost funky R&B ish, but also has like angry hardcore punk sounds in it too. And then the singer, like he can scream, and his scream is like so vicious. And then he'll sing too, and it almost gives you like Michael Jackson kind of vibes the way he sings.
Mhm.
And he's very much been on record saying like he was influenced by like all that stuff. Like he was listening to Metallica and Megadeth, but he was also listening to like jazz and Michael Jackson or Aretha Franklin and all that stuff. And it's very prominent in the guy's music. And it's just it's just a song about how America essentially like sells black culture. That's what the song's about. Like it's like they're selling black culture without benefiting black people. Essentially, is what the song's really about. And it's just a good song. I mean, the lyrics. Well, if it's worth a thing, then it's American. But it ain't that. I don't really want to see it. We'll let the dreams dream if it's American themed. But if it ain't that, then don't believe the word they say. Much like gluttons, starving pigs, my mind is certain they'll take all they can get. So push the buttons, hit reset. We're finally deserving what we get. Just everything about this band, but particularly in this song too, just kind of resonates with me. It's super political, and it's like very much putting a spotlight on like obviously black lives, but people of color in general. And the reason I put this band too, because this band no longer exists, but the lead singer from this band formed another band that is, I think, doing the Lord's work, if I'm being honest, which is my number one, which I won't say yet because we're not. But I really want to put a spotlight on this because it's not a conventional sound, and the lyrics are, I feel the lyrics are very powerful. And then obviously, for no one who knows what the heck body count is, the rapper Ice-T made a thrash metal band with some of his friends from his own neighborhood. And the reason, and like, if you ever see Ice-T interview about it, he was like, yeah, I didn't want my buddy to like feel like he had to join a gang or whatever. And I see he was getting depressed, not being able to be creative. So I was like, let's you and me form a band. And they did. And it's just Ice-T angrily rapping over like the heaviest, thrashiest guitars ever. And it's fucking glorious. It's to borrow a quote from Jamie Josser from Hatebreed, the songs go hard. And like the song No Lives Matter, it's like it's a message about how like black people diluting the message of what Black Lives Matters really means, and how ultimately Americans don't really give a fuck about people of color, people who are poor, people from minorities. Like it was just like Ice-T says it. There's like a huge monologue right before the song, like, but the truth of the matter is they don't really give a fuck about any of us, and it's just an angry ass song about, you know, all the shootings and like how ultimately it's just really the rich against the poor, and like the reason why they keep us separated is to keep us divided. And it's just an angry thrashy rap song, so that's why it's on here. Yeah.
I'm glad you put all these songs together, because when I was doing research on the bands, because I wasn't familiar with any of them, and seeing like, oh, these are all people of color making these songs, and they're making songs that traditionally were not made by people of color. I thought it was so fascinating. Ice-T is so interesting because like most people I think know him from like fucking Law and Order, and they think of him as this just like middle-aged charming actor. But if you go back to his rap, or then this, which I was really delighted to discover, like that guy goes hard, like you said. He has a lot of opinions. I don't know. I think he's a great Twitter follower because he does.
I was about to mention his Twitter handle. Dude, his Twitter's like, he goes off on people. He goes off. Fuck.
But of all the songs that were on this playlist that I hadn't heard yet, "Justice" by Oxymorons is by far my favorite. I fell in love with this song. I felt the power behind it, but also just like musically, like it fucking rocks so hard. And I love sort of how it's like, I don't you were saying this earlier, I don't love the idea of urban metal, but I like how, or like that name, but I like how it sort of feels like the crossroads of rap and metal. And
Yeah.
like rap and alternative has been, blended together. I mean, Rage Against the Machine did that. Linkin Park did that to an extent. So it's not a new idea, but these tracks, and this one in particular, have like a real authenticity to it that I appreciated.
It's also like if I'm being honest, it's a kind of heartbreaking song because it's very clearly like you hear the lyrics. If you read the lyrics, you can clearly tell it's like kids fed up with like, why is this still happening? Like, I'm tired of this. Like, and the chorus itself, I always find it interesting because like the verses are rapped, but the chorus itself is like it's sung. But like the way the melody is, even though it's not like super lyrical melodies per se. It's not like a professional singer, professional opera singer singing it. There very much is a tinge of like heartbreak behind it, which really resonates with me as well. So, and just the fact too that like it's a small indie band, so they're starving for pennies, and they're still like, but everything this song makes is going to go to like nonprofits. So, I want everyone to go listen to this 1,000 times and then listen to it 1,000 more times on top of that.
I definitely plan on exploring more about Oxymorons because it's also a great name for a band. And there's another band called Oxymoron.
Yes, there is.
But this is spelled with two R's and an S at the end. So really good. What did you think, Tim?
Yeah, I don't have a whole extra ad, but I really loved all three of these, and I also had never heard of any of these. And as I was listening to like No Lives Matter, I was like, man, that sounds like Ice-T. I was like, is that Ice-T? And I was like, surely I would know if Ice-T was doing something like this. So I listened to the song, and then I looked it up and read about it, and I was like, holy cow, Ice-T formed a metal band. How did I not know about this? Like, this song was great. I mean, the monologue intro in the beginning, I mean, really kind of says it all, and it specifically like calls out, the use of like all lives matter, and like why that is not the appropriate thing to say, and like what saying that, like, without the meaning it has to a person of color. And so I thought it was very powerful. And Ice-T, I mean, you could tell, I mean, a lot of his rap was pissed off, and this is just him adding a lot of like hardcore guitar to his rap, basically, which I love.
It somehow extenuates, like he was always like a quote unquote angry rapper, but somehow he sounds way angrier.
Oh yeah. And I saw Ice-T one time, not in concert. I saw him in Vegas when I was in Vegas as a young person. He was in I think it was in the Venetian, and he was there with Coco. And I remember I was like, hey, that's Ice-T. I was like a kid, and like some guy was like, yo, T, and like went up and started talking to him. I was like,
I also can't think of Ice-T without thinking of the John Mulaney bit where he's making fun of him from SVU, where like his character cannot get over the idea of being addicted to sex. So he's like, you mean kind of like that thing where you can't stop going to bed on the ponies? It's so funny. All right, here comes my next three before we head into our number ones. This is so thrilling and going so well. All right, so at number 4, I have This Is America by Childish Gambino. At number 3, I have, naturally, American Idiot by Green Day. And at number 2, I have Hair from the musical Hair. So I mentioned earlier when talking about Kendrick Lamar's All Right that I had another song on here that I really think is like the sibling to that song, and that's This Is America. I think this is one of the very, very best songs made about what it's been like in this country over the last decade. And what I love about this song is how it incorporates so many different types of music into it. There's like a strong gospel element. It has elements of trap, and then it has like a really sharp, biting rap flow. And so the juxtaposition you feel between certain verses and then the deep rumbling bass and the heavy lyrics is just so startling and effective. Like, for me, this is one of those songs where the music video is almost vital towards the experience, because Hiro Murai, who directed a bunch of episodes of Atlanta, which is Donald Glover's TV show that I highly recommend, directed the video, and it's really an incredible video, the imagery and visuals and Childish's performance. But like, this song just goes hard against gun violence and police brutality and just the experience of being Black in America. And I think both in terms of its message and just listening to it, it's really an incredible song. What do you say about American Idiot? I mean, this is the great protest song of the Bush era, but what's so incredible about it is like, this is just as relevant, if not more so, to the Trump era than it was to the Bush era. Because the song rails against the Iraq war, but it also, even more than that, is about how the media can manipulate its viewers and not be news anymore, but be propaganda, which you see with Fox News and then stuff that's come out like Newsmax and OAN. And even to a certain extent, even though I'm more inclined to agree with MSNBC or CNN, they're not always reporting things as they happen. They're putting their editorial spin on it, which to a certain extent is okay if there's clarity and that's the approach. But, we've seen with the alt-right and QAnon and the way people have acted over the last 4 years that they are super, super susceptible to manipulation and propaganda. And then just apart from that, I think this is just an incredible pop punk song. It rocks really hard. And it's just about how with every passing year, I think this country gets dumber and dumber. All right. And then number 2, I have Hair from the musical Hair. And in particular, I chose the version from the 2009 Broadway revival, which I saw 12 times on Broadway and I'm super familiar with. Any version of the song is great. But to me, Hair at large, the musical is one of the great works of protest art that this country has ever seen. I think it's an incredible musical. I chose this song, the title track, both because I think it rocks so hard and is such a fun, musically interesting song. There are other songs in the show that are more deliberate and literal in certain things that they are protesting against, because the show goes from everything towards, it's very heavily anti-Vietnam War. It deals with race issues and gender issues and sex issues. And when you're listening to Hair and the lyrics, it can be easy to sort of pass over how it's a protest song. But, when you look back at the hippie counterculture, their big aesthetic choice was the long hair. And this was done as a way for the idea of gender norms to be erased, to put men and women on equal footing. And I really think this song celebrates the individuality of each individual person and shows that how America's both societal and gender norms are bullshit, and how there's real power in expressing yourself in your physical appearance and using that as a way to protest against the government and the media and the Vietnam War, because the musical has a heavy plot about the draft. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to spoil anything if you aren't familiar with the story, but it goes really dark and deep into that in the second act. But I also think, just talking about hippies at large, hippies were arguably the true American patriots because they believed in what America could be, not just settling for what it is. And that's sort of what protesting gets down to, right? We were talking about earlier about how protesting is an act of hope. And I think looking at something that you love and have an appreciation for and saying, I believe you can be better than you are now. I believe that you can make changes to become the full potential of what you can be, is really powerful. Not just standing by and accepting and be like, no, this place is great. Fuck you. How dare you criticize it? And that's what hippies were. And I think that's what this song represents. What are your thoughts, Tim?
Yeah, these are all 3 incredible songs. This is America is a masterpiece. And like you said, the music video is, I do think is definitely something that you have to watch along with the song, because it helps tell that story that's being told. And it's super, super experimental and interesting the way it's arranged as well. Because like you said, it covers a lot of different genres. And I think that's part of highlighting the story in terms of it's like a history essentially that it's going through the experience. American Idiot. This would have been on my list as well, but I was I'm sure this has got to be on there somewhere. So I didn't include it either. And sure enough, it was. It's highlighting similarly to what the Descendants are talking about in terms of Americans, they kind of go along for the ride and a lot of times don't question things and are susceptible to being controlled by the media and that's unfortunate. And Green Day were calling it out, and this song is a banger and I love it so much. It's one of my favorite punk songs of all time. Great. And then Hair, I love Hair. I've actually never seen the Broadway, but my only experience with Hair is I watched the movie from the 70s. Is that when it was 70s, I think?
Yeah.
With Treat Williams, right?
Yep.
Williams? Yeah. And I really loved it. It's it's very it's very it's that hippie type vibe. And this song I think is great and I think it's a perfect protest song because like you said, it's kind of going against social norms and the constructs put on us, and not necessarily, you don't have to be put in that box, and essentially, and this is it's perfect as the opening to the movie or to the show, to the play or to the show, because it's kind of like, you know, setting the stage for like who this person is, specifically the main character, and then the journey that they're going to go on that Max kind of alluded to is quite something. And overall, the whole story is kind of like a protest of like you said, the 60s and like the Vietnam War and what was going on in the country at the time. But I think Hair is a great kind of like against the norm protest song. Be different.
What about you, David?
Catchy.
Man, This Is America. I love that song so much, and it's one of those songs where it's like it's not enough to just listen to it. You have to like see the music video, because the music video and the song go together. Like it can't be separate entities. Like I always suggest you watch that music video first. And I know for a lot of people I know, because I'm in Texas. There's a lot of Christians and Catholics and what have you, and I work in a lot of churches and stuff. And I remember a lot of like them being like, "Oh my god, the video's so violent and it's very upsetting." And I'm like, "That's the fucking point, you dummy!" Like, it's like, yeah. How do you think it feels for them? Like
Right.
that's the point. Like, and it's just you know what I mean? But oh man, that song, man, everything about it, dude. There's not a wasted second, not a wasted scene, not a wasted frame, not a wasted interval in that song. It's so good, and everything it does is so purposeful and masterfully done. And I'm so glad Max put it on this list, because as far as like that song's angry. Like it legitimately, you can tell like Gambino is legitimately pissed off, and he wrote a banger song about it. So, and I spoiler alert, I originally had American Idiot on my playlist, and I switched it out for American Lives by The Armed, because it's like this album itself, even though it's a quote unquote concept album, I feel like the whole album itself is very much a protest album. And this song, man, I mean, I still listen to it from time to time. It still holds up all these years later. It's a banger of a song. It's unfortunate the message is still as relevant, if not more so today than it was back then. But like, I mean, yeah, what else is there to say besides a banger of a song? It's quintessential punk rock. It's quintessential protest punk rock, and it's also quintessential just American music in general, I would say. So this song that I'm about to talk about now, it was like the one I was most excited about, because I want to know everything about this, because I was like, Max, if you don't put a musical song on this playlist, I'm gonna be upset, genuinely upset. And you did not disappoint. And like the first time I heard this song, because it was like I would have it on shuffle, so I would hear like my angry ass songs, then I heard Psycho, then I heard Anthem, and I was like, I want hair, give me hair, da, 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 da. I'm just like, what is this? And I had to listen to it on repeat. And it's so brilliant in the sense of like, if it's on the bare bones, it's kind of like a, for lack of a better term, it's kind of like it's a silly, goofy musical song, yay! But when you really dig down deep into it and the lyrics and like what you and Franco were saying, how it's like challenging gender norms and challenging like what it is to be truly American, what it means to be truly patriotic. And then I started reading the lyrics about like all the different types of hair it's describing, just being covered in hair, and I'm just like, oh my god, like what a clever song. And I've never heard of this musical before, so just like Monet, I'm gonna do a deep dive into Hair after this, because
you should listen to the whole album. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's a good musical.
I'm sure you've heard the song "Age of Aquarius."
Yeah, I've heard
that's from Hair, and Let the Sun Shine In.
Yeah,
that's also from Hair.
Yep.
You gave me an education, and I'm so happy. I'm so legitimately happy, dude. Like, I'm not being facetious. I was like, when I said earlier, like, there's one song in particular I really want to hear.
I had a feeling it was this one. Yeah,
it was Hair.
That's the one. This is the one I thought it was too.
This is the one. I was so excited.
So you mentioned you hoped I put a musical song on. I was so close to putting another musical song in, and I'll mention it because you brought it up. It's "Stick It to the Man" from the musical version of School of Rock. It's obviously a very literal song, but I think it's a really good rock song, especially considering it's written by Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's a really fun song and has, really good messaging about how sometimes, just like we're saying, like fuck authority, stick it to the man. So I didn't put it on, but I'm glad to have the opportunity to mention it. All right, folks. Well, we've been going about an hour and a half. which is not so bad considering the show can sometimes go 3 or 4 hours. And that brings us to our number ones. So without further ado, Tim Franco, what is your number one protest song?
My number one protest song
I have a feeling I know what band it's by.
I mean, shocker, shocker. It's an anti-flag song.
Oh!
It's, Racist from 2017, also another Trump era song. I mean, this song, when I first heard this song, I was like, God damn. I mean, they're really saying it like it is. I mean, just basically saying, you know, just because you don't know you're a racist doesn't mean you're not a racist, basically, is what they're saying, which, you know, you see that a lot with, unfortunately, with white people. And I feel like this song is about calling them out. It's about, you know, accepting the history of the country and the lyrics. I'm going to read some lyrics real quick, but specifically, one of my favorite parts of the song is when they're saying Black Lives Matter and you don't know why, and reverse racism isn't a real thing. No, you weren't around in the time of slavery, but that's no excuse to ignore its legacy. Not afraid of refugees, but you don't want a mosque built on your street. Offended by the claim of bigotry more than the racism in your face. And I feel like that's just something I know, unfortunately, within my own family, I've dealt with, like, people who, like, I've called people out in my family and they get offended when I call them out, but it's like, you are being racist and you're a racist. I mean, I don't know what else how you want me to sugarcoat it, but like, it's true. And there's no excuse. There's nothing you can, like, there's no reason, there's no excuse you can come up with to how you feel or what or things you say. They're not acceptable. And like, this is just, there's nothing around it. So this song really speaks to me because I've dealt with it and I deal with it still, you know, with my family, unfortunately. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are in the same shoes, and, you know, it's just really about, it's kind of inspired me to, like, be the change within my family line. And, you know, that's all it takes. It takes someone to, like, reverse course over what you've been, what people have been taught. You reverse that course and then you teach that to whoever you're going to pass it on to, and you teach the right thing to, and that's how you get change, and that's how we can start getting change. So this song really speaks to me for that level, because I can't stand racists and I hate them all. And I think, never mind, I'm not going to say that, but I hate them all and I don't like them at all. And I think the song is an anthem for that. Fuck them. Fuck all the racists in the world. I hate them.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar position to you in that there are people in my family who, whether consciously or otherwise, say and do racist things. And I've actually gotten into arguments or discussions with other people in my family who are like, you know, we see what you see, but you can't change old dogs. Why waste your time? I'm like, I can't just sit idly by and let these things happen. Like, I'm going to speak up against it. And if that upsets people, at least I know I can go to sleep at night. And, you know, I draw this comparison a lot. Like, I think that, you know, Jewish people and Black people need to link together because arguably they're the two groups that have been most persecuted. And so to sit here as a Jewish man and think that the Holocaust wasn't that long ago, that was like less than 100 years ago, where millions and millions of our people were killed just because of their religion. And to sit there and then be racist and not recognize how you're doing the same thing that the Nazis did to us is just baffling to me. So, like, I agree with you. Like, I hate racism. I hate racists, and I will take any opportunity that I have to speak out against it and call it out when I'm seeing it. But what I found so powerful about this song is how it recognizes that it's not always conscious. There's a lot of unconscious bias. Like, right there in the first lyric of the song, it's in the things that you say and you don't say. You don't know it because you're such a fucking cliche. The way you define them and us, those you fear and those you trust. Like, time and time again, you see and experience things that are unconscious bias, that are microaggressions, that are in the way you treat people without, you know, I'm not, you know, to be a racist, you don't have to go out there and call people terrible things. It can just be in the way you choose to treat them or that sort of thing. And it's very clearly a systemic issue. And it's something that I think more white people need to speak out against and also act on. Like, I've talked about this on Front Center Mez, the theater podcast I host. Like, there is a terrible wave of systemic racism in the theater industry. So I'm going to take any opportunity I can as a younger producer, because a lot of the producers are older white guys, to call it out and do what I can to be, you know, a positive force for change. So yeah, this song resonated a lot. And, you know, Anti-Flag is awesome. You have 4 songs by them, and I think it could have all been Anti-Flag because they're just such a great protest band. And the fact that the song just came out a few years ago, like, it speaks to our current moment. Like, this is stuff that's happening day in and day out. We just saw the Black Lives Matters protest this summer. Like, how many Black people need to be killed by the police? And then you see what happened at the Capitol 2 Wednesdays ago, where these white people literally committed an insurrection on like hallowed government ground, and they were just escorted out. If those people had been Black, they would have been shot and murdered on site.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the proof you need to show that these are systemic, disgusting issues. Anyways, I'm done with my speech. What are your thoughts, David?
You gotta make me follow that up, man.
I'm sorry.
I mean, what else can I say that you two haven't already said? I mean, in terms of like, again, quintessential punk rock, it's very arguable that you could say Anti-Flag in terms of protest punk bands are probably one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. And I think this song, particularly for Tim Franco and his playlist, pretty much sums up everything really well. So it's a fun punk rock song with like a very, very great message behind it as well. And it also it's like also kind of like, if you're a legitimate individual, and this is gonna sound fucking all right, whatever, but like, this is gonna real talk, guys. I try to stay humble 100% of the time. You know what I mean? Keep it humble, homies. But like, legitimately, if you're a person who's constantly striving to try to be a better person, and like really trying to check yourself, because we're all imperfect human beings. Sometimes we say and do things or think things without really thinking of consequences. It's just like involuntary human reaction. And I think this song too is like, there's some stuff in it too that like, if someone were to really listen to it, that they can have a real like evaluation of self-conscious and character in it too. So I mean, yeah, it's a great song. It was, I don't know if it's my favorite Anti-Flag song you put on there. Christian Nationalist is pretty fucking great, but
Christian Nationalist is very, very.
But I can see why you have those two like right next to
It's
each
more
other.
recency with that one because it just came out last year. So like it's
get
very
that.
close. It's very close to being. I could probably flip flop them easily because I love that song as well.
But that's also kind of the point of like protest songs, right? That they're supposed to talk about a moment in history, a moment in time that they're currently living.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for you to be like, yeah, recency bias, but is it really? Because we're still kind of living through it. So
Yeah.
I hope like. Not that we probably won't ever listen to these songs, but I would hope we all hope that one day we find these songs to no longer be relevant because they're no longer an issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I will say if you listen to any of the Anti-Flag songs on my playlist and you get offended, you might need to examine yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Or any of the songs on our list.
It's funny because like I tweeted earlier that so I guess Rand Paul, that piece of shit, was on Fox News and said about Biden's inaugural speech today. If you read his speech and listen to it carefully, much of it is thinly veiled innuendo, calling us white supremacists, calling us racists, calling us every name in the book, calling us people who don't tell the truth. And it's like, if that's what you take from it, then that's what you are.
Yeah.
Like, if you're upset and offended by these like just like injustices that are being called out, then you're one of the ones perpetuating those injustices.
Mm-hmm.
If this had only been like an Anti-Flag celebration show, that would have been okay, because I think they're so great. And I think like the one thing I take away from all the Anti-Flag love and all these songs is like, their songs have such powerful messages, but they're also such fun, awesome punk songs. Like they've
been doing it for a long time, man, since like the early '90s. Like they
don't forget to like put the fun in it while also being like, fuck racism, fuck Christian nationalism and all that stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, without further ado, what's your number one, David? And I just want to pull up this comment before you reveal it because it was
I was looking for it too.
very sentient. I'm not sure which songs exactly I would put on my list, but 2 bands I've been listening to a lot over the past 4 years are Fever 333 and Fire from the Gods. So that being said, what is your number one, David?
Bro, if we keep in with the themes that I said about people of color making punk rock, it has to be Fever 333, and particularly the song Presence and Strength. If the whole theme of being of a protest is there's always ultimately hope, that song to me is like the ultimate protest song, 'cause it's about hope and like strength in numbers with people who like are looking for better, are trying to get better, and trying to make the world around them better. And this band in particular, like I said, the reason I also mentioned Let Live earlier is the lead singer from that band formed this band, Fever 333, with a guitarist from one of my favorite bands that also no longer exists, the Chariot, and then with the drummer from I think Night Verses, Eric Imprada. And it was really an idea that was born by Jason Allen meeting, of all people, Travis Barker, and talking about punk rock and hip hop and all that stuff. And ultimately he wanted to make a band that wasn't just about the sound, but it was also an ethos. It was also like a political movement in and of itself. And he created Fever 333. The obviously, you know, uh the numbers represent something, 333, whether you want to think spiritually or politically or what have you. Like there's always the group of three and all that stuff, three branches of government or what have you. But also just the whole thing of like there's a fever coming, saying like there's going to be a change, there's going to be a literal climate in terms of politics and economics. There's going to be a literal change in everything. And this band to me represents like, it's literally a protest band. Like everything they write is in protest of what is currently going on in our society as American people. Like there's no song wasted on anything else other than bringing to light social and political issues. Like they have songs about gun violence, they have songs about Black Lives Matter movement, they have songs about equality, whether it's gender equality or minority equality, they have songs about gun violence. That it's like everything that's currently happening in our society, both politically, economically, and racially. This band talks about it and sings about it in a way that if you're an angry kid like I was growing up, it automatically catches your ear, because the sound is just it's so groovy, so catchy, but so vicious and angry, because they have a clever mix of like funk, hip hop, R&B with just like blistering rock and roll heavy guitar riffs in it into. And again, Jason Butler, like he has a way of like he can sing really well and also melt your face off with screams. And I just love everything about this band. If I could just read a little bit of the lyrics, what I personally love about this song in particular, and why I chose it as my number one, again, presence is strength, meaning just by you showing up and speaking up, you're presenting a presence to voices and a political movement that might otherwise not be heard. And besides the chorus, which I personally love, because the chorus goes, "Down with the kings, long live the servants, will be the last voice you'll ever hear. Down with the kings, the tables are turning, setting the scene for your biggest fears. That's what we're planning." Talking about like reversing the establishment, like the whole like keep them separated, keep them in check. Like, nah, we're gonna turn this around on you guys. And personally, my favorite thing, and this feels like the ethos of what Fever 333 is what Jason yells at the end, which is like, "Listen up. There's only one way to be heard, and we've known it from the very beginning. The only way to be heard is to speak up. So use your voice that emits all the noise, and as long as we stay loud, motherfuckers." And that's the ethos, man. Just as long as you stay loud, you got to let them pay attention to you. Eventually, stuff will change, and that's the whole theme of protest. That's the whole theme of like, it's aggressive and in your face, like, yeah, fuck the man. But there's like that underlying of like hope for change, real positive, effective change. And I feel like this song, along with this band in particular, in this moment, fits all that for me. Not to say that the other bands previously don't, but like for right now, as Americans, as we're living in and experiencing and witnessing all this history, this band is like documenting it through their art, and it's great art for me. So
Yeah, I really like this song a lot. This is another band that I wasn't familiar with that I definitely intend to do a deep dive on and explore. This one and Oxymorons in particular. And then, God, what were they called? The Bad Cop, Bad Cop?
Yeah.
And this song actually kind of reminds me of God Save the Queen, in that it really feels like an ode to the working class, because the lyric that really stood out to me is, "Down with the kings, long live the servants, will be the last voice you ever hear. Down with the kings, the tables are turning, setting the scene for your biggest fears, you've always been fading life." I think these politicians think that they've been giving some sort of higher power and that they are where the buck stops. But what they forget, and the reality is we elect the politicians to represent us. We choose who we think is best to do our bidding and enact positive change for us, not the other way around. They literally work for us. Their salaries are paid by our fucking tax dollars, right? And that's what this song boils down to me. It's like it's the working people, the everyday Joes who matter. We are the ones who make the world work. We are the ones who get up in the morning and, go to our 9 to 5s or whatever shifts you do and make society function, not the other way around. So there's a lot of power just in that notion. Like the kings, down with the kings, the servants are who matters. That's what I took from this song. And then all the other stuff you said. But I'm really, really excited to explore this band. And for what it's worth, I have been drinking throughout the show and I've hit a bit of a wall. So I'm feeling loopy now.
Hell yeah. I mean, I saw it. I was witness to it. So
at a certain point, I'm like, oh, here we are.
I'm glad this was your number one, because this was my favorite song on your playlist as well. I think this song is amazing. And then after I listened to it, I looked into the band, and so I did see that the singer was in Let Live as well. But yeah, I also like, because I was looking at like images and like stuff like from like concerts and stuff like that, and I also like that he puts out like the like whole like outfit that he wears and stuff too, because he wears it's very kind of like law enforcement looking, because he wears like all black, and he's got like I think he's wearing like a flak jacket, it looks like, with like the 333 on it. But yeah, I mean, it's a powerful song. Like Max said, very like, pro working class, pro the people, and kind of like anti the corrupt leadership, and the kings in our sense would be like, maybe like, the billionaires of the world who really kind of control everything that's going on, and really it should be the opposite, because we're the majority in terms of like situations we live in. So like
you look at Jeff,
control things.
You look at Jeff Bezos, who has billions and billions of dollars, but he wouldn't have a fucking cent if it weren't for the people who are working hard hours day in and day out at the Amazon facilities, boxing the packages up, sending them out. Like, these are the people who make things function. And then Jeff and other billionaires just sit there in their high tower collecting money off the hard work of others.
Asking them to give up their paid vacation for other people who get sick with COVID during this time.
Right. Yep.
You guys, good for you.
Workers unionize, stuff like that.
All right.
I want to call it a couple pieces of lyrics that I really like. They're kind of like similar, and they appear at different parts in the song. The first was, I choose the lesser of two evils between immoral and illegal. And then later on it comes up again. He says, power people, the lesser of two evils, power people. And this is what you get. So I found that those particularly moving as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great song. And like I said, I cannot wait to dive deeper into this band. I really liked it. All right, let's get to my final one before we get out of here. The fact that this band hasn't come up yet, well, it's been talked about in other ways, but this is one of the. Go ahead.
Just because if you know, then you know, right? None of us chose it because I didn't personally choose it because I felt like it was very cliche. But that being said, like, best of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I think cliches are cliches most of the time for a reason. That's because they're just that good. And really, like, this song and this band are one of my favorite of all times. I actually had tickets to see them and like their reunion tour this September or this summer in July. And of all the things that I missed because of COVID, it was seeing them and seeing My Chemical Romance on their reunion tour that I'm like most pissed that didn't happen. If you haven't figured out what it is already, you haven't been paying attention. It's Killing in the Name by Rage Against the Machine.
And like, honestly, I was gonna put that song too, but I was like, "There's no way no one else chooses a Rage Against the Machine. There's no way."
So
there almost was a way, because I think we were all thinking the same thing. Like, I'm sure someone else would choose it. Like, everyone knows this band. Right?
I had to include this song for many reasons. Like when I was talking earlier about my brother and like my, like the thing I take most away from him is music. Like, this is one of those bands he introduced me to that I fell in love with and have listened to consistently since the mid 90s when I have cognizant memories of music. It was like Metallica, Megadeth, Rage Against the Machine, and Beastie Boys are like the four bands I specifically remember he brought to me, and still bands I love to this day. And what's funny is a lot of these bands, especially Rage, are very liberal in their politics, and yet he's just about alt-right. So that's a whole thing. But the song is incredible. I mean, the guitar riffs, just musically, are like some of the best of all time. It's so badass and empowering. But like, this is a song that was written, in the wave of the Rodney King riots. And the lyric that really sums it up is, "Some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses," which draws a direct link between the KKK and those who work in the LAPD. But really, the song just attacks all flaws of American society: racism, the military-industrial complex, police brutality. It's an incredible song. It rocks so hard. It sort of, in many ways, sums up like all of the messaging from all of the songs we've talked about. And my favorite thing is, if you follow Tom Morello on Twitter, which if you don't, you must, people lamenting that rage is political, which first of all, like, what machine exactly do you think they're raging against? Like, it's right there in the fucking name. But also when people are like, "Stick to music, you don't know politics," and he's like, "Actually, I have a master's in political science."
Right.
Which is my favorite thing. I mean, very, very similarly to System of a Down or Anti-Flag, I think Rage is one of the great political bands of the last 30 to 40 years. This song, I think, is their magnum opus in terms of musicality and also, the politics and protesting it represents. And it very clearly had to be my number one, cliche or not. Like I said, cliches are cliche for a reason. So, Tim?
Yeah, so Rage, I have lots of Rage on my larger playlist that Maxwell has listened to.
Yes.
And this song is for sure on there, and Rage for sure belongs on here. And the only reason I didn't include it on my list is because I was going for a very specific punk theme, and I veered with Metallica and Prison Song, and I didn't want to veer anymore, or else I would have thrown Rage on there at some point. But it definitely belongs here, and this song is incredible. I mean the whole song, all the lyrics in this song are absolutely just like incredible. But like, those who died are justified for wearing the badge. They're the chosen whites. You justify those that died. It's like, and then the way it ends, is like incredible with the whole "fuck you, I won't do what you tell me." Fuck you. It's so good. Like, you just want to scream it.
Every time I hear it, I'm like,
this is one of the many songs I like to turn up in my car and like roll down the windows and then go drive around in like the suburbs. Blast it.
I live in New York, so I know
exactly what you're talking about.
It's so good.
It's definitely similarly like a great, like, listen to the subway while you give side eye to all the people being assholes songs. Like, please get up and give that pregnant woman your seat. Please stop sneering at that person's ass. Like, please wear your fucking mask. Like, everything you could be angry about is summed up in this song and that fucking guitar riff. It's just iconic.
Yeah, and musically speaking, like, Tom Morello is like in my top 10 like guitarists, my personal top 10 guitarists all time. I put him like, I kind of like I compare him a lot to like Jimi Hendrix, where like they like were very like unique in making like just some very interesting sounds with their guitars, And I think Jimmy, had a little bit less to work with in terms of like the help that he got. I mean, Tom has more help, but he's still like an incredible guitarist and still can just really pull some emotion and some like visceral feelings out of the guitar. And yeah, I love Rage for that reason. And I didn't have tickets to go see them, but I was very excited that they had gotten back together. And then unfortunately,
I desperately hope and sort of expect that once COVID's over, because if I'm not mistaken, so I love going to concerts. I probably go to 30 concerts a year. So I had at least like 15 tickets to different things between March and now, and some of them just offered refunds. But then others have just been like, we're going to reschedule. And so if I'm not mistaken, Rage is one where they theoretically still have my money, so they'll just reschedule. And I desperately hope they do. I hope they don't like get gun shy on their reunion tour, because they've been one of like my top dream bands to see. I've never had the chance to see them live. So yeah. All right, David, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's like, I said cliche, but I didn't mean that in a negative way.
No.
It's like when you think protest bands and protest songs, like, to me, there's no argument. The greatest of all time, the GOAT, is Rage Against the Machine. Like, what came before or after them, like, yes, there's music before and after for sure, but like, magnus opus of protest songs, like Killing in the Name of, is not just the magnus opus of Rage Against the Machine. To me, it's the magnus opus of all punk rock protest songs of all time. Like it's at the peak of the mountain. It's the single little pebble on top of that mountain. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's what else can you say about it? Like, and Tim rose a fantastic point. He's very much like Jimi Hendrix in the sense like maybe he wasn't like this crazy technical crazy shredder, but he changed the way people thought about the guitar and the sounds the guitar can make. And he literally kind of created a genre just purely based on like how he treated the instrument. And like
And he carried that over to Audio Slave too. I mean, with
yeah,
over there.
in like the same way like Jimi Hendrix changed the way people thought about guitar and how guitar could be played, because you can make an argument there was technically more proficient guitarists at the time,
Right.
but no one had the sound that Jimmy did. And when Jimmy brought out that sound, people were like, oh, you can make the instruments sound like that. And it's like the exact same way when Tom Morello came out with Rage Against the Machine. They're like, what is he doing that with? And when they found out he was doing all those noises on the guitar, they were like, you can do that with the guitar? It's like the same visceral reaction. And then and on top of it, dude, that whole like roll the windows down, just have people like look at you dirty and be like, do something.
Yeah.
Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me.
Like you're offended, then you're the problem.
Yeah.
And I just want to bring up, because we were talking a little bit about how people of color and this type of music don't always go hand in hand, but it's easy to forget that Tom Morello's father is from Kenya, so he is of color, and to me he's one of like the incredible artists of our time. But yeah, follow him on Twitter if you don't. It's a delight. Along with
Ice-T.
Yes. So forget the songs. Just go follow Tom and Ice.
And Zach's also of color too, right? Is he like Mexican?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, friends?
I think we did it. This is the penultimate, not the penultimate,
No,
the ultimate, the pinnacle list of protest songs. Nothing else should exist outside of our list.
No, this is it. We did it. We did it. This
look,
is the only one.
I have to say I'm thrilled that we decided to do this. I am thankful that Chris allowed us to do this. I love this playlist so much. There's so many songs, not only that I picked that I love, so many like bands and stuff I intend to explore and learn more about. So many like messages and feelings that I resonate with and think are continuously relevant to these fraught times we're living in. And like I said at the beginning of the show, we chose to do this on Inauguration Day for a specific reason, because while we're all so fucking thrilled that the horror of the last 4 years are over and thankful for the turning of a new page, and a new page that's going to hopefully be led with decency and empathy, like we also recognize that doesn't mean it's over. There's not going to be like quick change. And the thing about a politician who's working for the people and not for himself is that they may not always be perfect, but they will hopefully listen. So, and that's the thing about protesting, is you hope that people are going to listen. So keep protesting, keep standing up for what you believe in, keep shouting out, gender inequality, systemic racism, the military-industrial complex, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in the hopes that we can make these changes that we so desperately need to make. Before I let you guys tell us where you can find you online and anything you want to promo, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we have coming up on the network in the next few days, because I didn't do it at the top of the show. We are dark tomorrow night. But on Friday, in the theme of inauguration, and we've been doing some Aaron Sorkin films, we are doing a watch-along of The American President. This is a really great movie that Aaron Sorkin wrote. The West Wing would not exist if not for this movie. This is kind of the pilot for that show. Saturday at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, we have our PJCN Water Cooler Chat, where we will be discussing and reviewing episode 3 of WandaVision. That will be myself, PJ, Sean Sullivan, Dwayne Burke, and probably Jake Berlin. So that's going to be really fun. And I've loved the first 2 episodes and cannot wait to talk about episode 3. Can't wait to watch episode 3. Sunday night, of course, we do the Unwind, but this Sunday is a very special Unwind. We're doing a Survivor Island of our top 10 episodes of The Office. This is going to be myself and Tim Franco, who's here on the show, the meme queen herself, Jen Kemp, and then our special guests late to the party, both Robert and Vanessa, are joining us. That's going to be fun. And if I know anything about Tim Franco and Survivor Island, he is going to cause as much chaos as possible. Then Monday night, we are doing a watch along of not only one of the namesake of this channel is PJ Campbell's favorite movies of all time, but this is a executive producer Patreon pick, because if you haven't checked out our Patreon, the executive producers get to pick one watch along a month. And we are watching The Rocketeer. I am so excited. I love this movie. It is so much fun. Then next Wednesday on Suddenly Soundtracks, if you are a $25 patron, you get to choose a Suddenly soundtrack. So our patron Brandon Buckingham, who was $25 last month and then upgraded to an executive producer, and we're just getting into it now because we were so busy in December, we are doing Rent, the classic Jonathan Larson musical. So this is going to be myself and my absolutely stunning, incredible wife Ellie, PJ Campbell, host Chris Clark, and our special guest Preston Max Allen, who, if you watch our channel, you are familiar with. He is an accomplished musical theater writer who wrote We Are the Tigers, Carrie 2, the parody musical, and the Christmas musical that I produced on Zoom this year, a very Netflix Christmas musical. I am super excited to talk about Rent and all of its incredible music. Finally, next Tuesday, it's been a long time coming. Book Nook is here. Dwayne Burke and I are hosting a monthly book club show. We hope you all get a copy of the book and read it. If you haven't already, I would suggest getting it because there's less than a week to read it. The book is The Runes of Gorland, the first in the Ranger's Apprentice series. In full disclosure, Dwayne picked this book. I was aware of this series and had never read it, and I have fucking fallen in love with this wonderful fantasy adventure. There's like 11 books in the series and then spin-off series, and I am going to be buying and reading all of them because it's delightful. We're going to discuss the characters, the narrative, the theme. And also, you're going to want to tune in because on each show, we're announcing the book for next month. And you're going to want to get that and read it to be a part of it. So that'll be Tuesday night. Finally, a huge thank you to our Patreon producers, our executive producers, Brandy Parker, Brandon Buckingham, and Ricardo Franco, and our producers, Anton Putra, Bedore, the lovely Bedore, Chris Pokernoy, Mike K, Jake Berlin, Kale the Youth Critic, the lovely Molly Damon, Coach Stephen White, Patricia Carrillo, and Tyler Birch. Chris and Tyler are new to the fold. Welcome to the Pajukin family. We're happy to have you and hope you enjoy all of our content. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Tim, where can everyone find you online? Do you got anything to promote? Hello to your beautiful dogs.
Yeah,
who's
Quinn's here.
Fluffy butt I can see.
You can find me on Twitter at tfranco84. Those numbers, if you watch the show, mean something. It's my birthday. Well, my birth year, not my birthday, but there's no 84 day. But anyways, you'll find me here on the channel here and there. I will be on the Unwind coming up. I gotta actually. I have my list almost finalized, so I got to get that sent off. And I'll try to bring chaos to that, but it's The Office, so I might have to end up like doing something crazy, like killing one of my own picks or something. Something weird. I don't know.
I recently put together my list of like my 20 somewhat favorite shows of all time, and The Office came in at a hearty number 6. So there's part of me that's like, do I want to just put like legit what my favorite episodes are, or do I want to pick a couple outliers just because I'm confident other people like there's strategy to this?
That's the thing. That's how I always play it. I'm all about strategy when it comes to the Survivor.
Look, I still don't forgive you for getting Jingle All the Fucking Way on our best Christmas movies list. What about you, David? And if you don't mention it yourself, please do check out David's new album, Sunday something.
Beats.
Sunday Beats. I was going to say Sunday Vibes, and I was like, that's not right. Sunday Beats.
That's one of the songs.
Yes. It's a great album just to listen to, but also what I love about it, and I've said this on air before, is like David specifically crafted it to be high quality, free use music for streamers, whether that be Twitch or YouTube or whatever. Like you can use it for whatever you want. Just credit David B in the description of what you're doing. Every song is awesome. It's a pleasure to know you and get to know you over the past few months. I love you so much. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
The feeling is quite mutual, my friend.
I'm glad.
That's why when you asked, like, just riddle when Max slid into my DMs and he was like, "Yo, girl, what's your number?" I was like, you can find me on also
texting at like 3 a.m. last night.
Yeah, we were. You can find me on all social media at David B Music 21. The number does mean something. 2 usually comes after 1, and I felt bad for it, so I put it first in my name. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, like Max said, I have an album out. You can go check it out at David B Music on anywhere you stream music, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, what have you. I have a little YouTube channel with some music, silly songs that are on there, and a mini concert that I did for Smashathon. If you guys want to go check that out, from
Concert was so badass.
thanks, man. Everyone
Like,
keeps saying how
I,
like
you know,
it,
I don't think it's any secret that I was a big part of like behind the scenes planning the Smashathon, and I think more almost as much as anyone other than maybe Sean, I was like on camera a lot, and I was exhausted, and like that concert was the exact pick me up I needed, and was still like my favorite segment of the whole thing. So
I told everybody when I came back into that Zoom call, I was like, I wanted my concert to be your quick sniff of cocaine. That's what I wanted.
that's exactly what it was. I actually have a question while we have you live.
Yeah.
So let's say a streamer wants to use one of your songs. Is there somewhere that it's easily downloadable? Because I know like on Spotify and Apple Music and stuff, you can't necessarily download the MP3 to then integrate into your materials.
Yeah, you can go. I have to double check. It's probably on Bandcamp. I know for sure you can buy it off of Amazon Music and of course iTunes. So if you want to buy it off of those and just have it on you, that
Perfect.
helps a lot too. But I also think it might be on Bandcamp. I have to double check that. That's a good question. Because I use a service called DistroKid, and they just distribute it everywhere for me. So,
Cool.
but yeah. And then you'll find me occasionally here on Pajukan because I love being here because I feel like I'm home. Chewy.
Aw. We love having you.
Definitely.
Well, look, thank you so much. Excuse me for tuning in tonight. This was a real pleasure. I'm going to tweet out the link to the playlist on the Pajukan Twitter, so you can listen to all these songs, get to know some of them you don't know, fall in love again with those you do. Keep rocking, keep protesting, keep speaking up for what you believe in. You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd. It's Maxwell. Instagram, it's Maxwell Inc. Of course, you can always find me around here at the Pajukan, and we will see you Friday night for the American president. All love, people. Wear your masks. Yes, wear your masks.